the presentation.
Okay. Group 2, can you proceed? Okay. You have 20 minutes to present your slides.
Okay,
Then we
Assalamualaikum.
go to the discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor.
You can start.
Assalamualaikum. Can everybody hear me? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
can
we can
hear.
hear you.
Yes.
All right. Hello, good evening, and assalamualaikum to our lecturer and fellow classmates. I am Nurul Aiman, and today my group will present on the concept of diploma disease and its effect on development. Before that, thank you very much to the first group who has presented a lot of information regarding the topic. So we hope that we can share something new and fresh from our group. We also would like to highlight that we have provided a video of detailed explanation in Telegram and eLearn for your reference. Okay, so next. All right, so Diploma Disease is actually a controversial book written in 1976 by Ronald Dore. So before I go further into the topic, first we need to know why Ronald Dore wrote this book and why he was being very critical on the issue. So actually in 1970s, examination was first implemented in Europe. In the beginning, exam was implemented to cater the need for greater expertise in the government professions. But then examination got out of control. Exam only began as just a test of competence, and then they developed into a ticket for getting into job market. So people are getting into schools, college, universities to get these access cards to more prestigious professions. People also have this idea that through professions and vocations, they can improve their status by holding a diploma. So even employers found out that they can save themselves time and trouble by using school and university examination as the filter when selecting candidates for jobs. So everybody was obsessed of getting diploma or better known as qualification, as it might change their status. So Ronald Dore described these changes as a toxic to the education. As what I've written on the slide, he said that school used to be for educating people, for developing minds and characters. But today, as jobs depends more and more on certificate, degrees and diploma, aims and motives are changing. So schooling has become more and more a ritualized process of qualification earning. So although this word was uttered by Ronald Dore in 1976, but his words and concern are still relevant until today. We can see pretty much everybody are aiming to achieve some kind of qualification for some requirement benefits. Next slide, please. Okay. So let us look at the basic concept of diploma disease. The first concept is credential and educational inflation. Dore argued that education has become a business and it can lead to unemployment if there were too many universities and courses offered but not enough jobs in the market. Okay, the next concept is education has become a ritualistic process. The whole idea of diploma disease happened when Ronald Dore argued that not all schooling is education. To him, getting education is for developing people's minds and skill and enhance productivity in the society and economy. But schooling is more towards qualification, earnings, goals, and getting jobs. Okay, and the third concept is delusion of education. Now, everybody knows that a good paper qualification opens door to a better job and higher pay. However, the obsessiveness of getting the qualification leads to a forgery of diploma. So, what was happening today when there is a syndicate that sell fake certificates from foreign universities that were found to be not even existed. I think that I will pass to my group mate to explain in detail about the impact of the diploma disease. Okay, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Aiman. Okay, I am Munira. So I'm going to explain simply the impact of diploma disease to the economy, social and political aspects. Okay, before I start explaining, I just want to highlight, okay, according to a study conducted by Ministry of Education of Malaysia, Graduate Tracer Study, there is a combined number of 51,000 students from both private and public universities that graduate each year. Study shows that 1 out of every 5 graduates remain unemployed. In 2017 alone, 12.4% of students are graduate are unemployed. Sorry. So all this is actually the result of diploma disease. Okay, so when you have a lot of people graduating with higher qualification, because like as Aiman has already explained, that education is very important. People are looking for more qualification to better themselves in getting better jobs and everything. Therefore, many people are graduating. But sadly, you can see one of the impact is there are less job opportunities. For example, when we had the IT, in the early years of 2000 in Malaysia, everybody is taking IT, diploma in IT, degree in IT. But unfortunately, there are not many jobs that cater to people who graduate from that area. So that is where you have problems like less job opportunities, and there are people who are overqualified. So people who has degree do not have enough job. Is either they become unemployed, or what happen is they go for job that is beneath their qualification. Then this also create another problem where you have a lot of people who are not productive because they are not motivated to work in their job field. So this is another problem. Second problem that we can see that is an impact of social of diploma disease is also the social gap in education. Especially in the recent situation where we have a COVID pandemic, we can see how there is a social gap between the poor and the wealthy. You see, when you have COVID pandemic, more learning is done online. So many people need computers, laptops, and gadgets to do online learning. But then there are some group of people in the society, the less fortunate ones, do not have access to education. So when you talk about qualification, the people who has more money gets more qualification. Therefore, there is also a gap in the social aspect. Okay, besides that, all this causes a lot of problems, especially when there's an increase in the cost of providing educational facilities for a physician. So they spend a lot of money to go to study, but at the end of the day, they do not get jobs. So it becomes very imbalanced for between the educational development and the economic development. Okay, next. Okay, however, when we talk about this, we have to also we cannot just deny the fact that qualification is also very important, because every coin has its two sides. So like Aiman has already explained earlier, there are some people who use qualification as a filter, especially the employers and in the sector of economic. So we still cannot deny the fact that we also need qualification, because we need to build our nation, to build a resilient nation, to encourage the creation of a just society, to maintain sustainable economic growth. It is important to have the development of education. So qualification cannot be denied. But however, we can see that there are current changes that's happening to the education that will be explained later on by my group mates in terms of alternative education and reschooling, that is actually trying to create a balance towards education. So this is all on my part. So I would like to pass to my next presenter, Sharil. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Kak Moon and also Aiman. All right, so I will try to make it short and make it easy for you guys to understand on Ivan Illich's criticism on education. So you have to view Ivan Illich's criticism in a view in terms of philosophy as well as sociology in education. It will be a bit difficult, but I try to make it easy for you. Okay, so what is the basis of Ivan Illich's criticism? Why did he decide to criticize education in the first place? So first thing you need to argue and know that during that time, even though it is in the 1970s, but whatever that he has presents, that's pretty much relevant today. And that is why, although this idea idea that he proposed back then was really controversial and radical in a way people will call it. But at the end of the day, people started to realize, and it was introduced in the 20th century as well as 21st century. We still look back at what he has presented. So he was really concerned with the direction of our education system at that time. So because of that concern, he proposed a new answer to it by criticizing the education system. So he was concerned with the direction of our education system that is becoming institutionalized. So what exactly is institutionalized? So like what has been presented by the previous group is that education is now a business, and we can see that today, like we are as teachers, we are actually selling the product, and our product is education, which is not good. When you sell something, there is no value to it anymore. Like people can go and buy that thing, and there is no value to knowledge anymore. That was like his biggest concern, and it goes back to the whatever has been presented my group mate as well, which is on diploma disease. Whenever like you devalue education, there is when it brings more problems such as diploma disease. And one of the biggest concern towards the education system at that time is that institutionalized learning actually marginalize the poor. And how do they do that? Is that if you have money, you can buy education. If you have money, you can get better access towards education. That is like his biggest concern. You can see that it goes back to whatever we learned from last 2 weeks, which is on the theories of cultural and also social reproduction theory. Like it breeds more problems and it creates a big gap between the poor and also the rich. That is exactly what he was concerned in. All right. So he also, because of that, he believed in deschooling the society, a famous book that he wrote. So what exactly is deschooling? So you need to understand that deschooling means, deschooling based on his perspective is an educational approach as well as philosophy that promotes freedom of children to choose whatever they want to learn. They are not confined within the four walls of the school. And more specifically, it refers to the process that students leave the traditional school or traditional education, which is going to school, and adapt to other form of learning that will be presented by my friend later on. All right. So because of that, he proposed a new way of learning, which he calls a learning web. So learning web is merely a philosophy by Ivan Illich. And next slide, please. So this is what he proposed. So there are four bases of what he proposed, the learning webs. So remember, do not confuse learning webs with our website or things like that, because they are not related at all. Because in 1970, pretty much there's no internet connection strong yet and things like that. There's no internet yet. So it's like a web, a spider web. So these are the four things that he presented, and I've explained this in my video, and you can watch it. So basically, it proposed four things that I will explain later, and they are reference to service to educational objects, skill exchanges, which is the most important one, as well as peer matching, which is very good, and finally, reference to service to educators at large. So now, what is the consequences of his criticism and also learning webs next? So now let us look at what are the things that we can actually learn from what he has criticized. So it is important that number one, he proposed that when he proposed learning web as well as he criticized, he believed that there should be a reform in the education system. And how do you reform it? In order for you to reform, you need to examine the relation between schooling and the modern nation of education. Right? So he also believed that we should enable learners to be in control of their own learning, and learning should be able to take place at any time, at any location, without relying too much on the teacher. So here he really highlights the importance of an independent learner. So because he can see that when education becomes institutionalized, people will go to school, they rely on the curriculum, they look at the teacher and they absorb all the knowledge. They're spoon-fed. He doesn't want that. He believes that students should value knowledge. So in order for students to value knowledge, they need to realize the importance of wanting to get knowledge. And in order for them to want to get knowledge, they need to be independent. And our education system is not promoting that, and he was really concerned with that. So that's why he proposed this learning web, where a sharing of ideas should take place, and a lot of other things should take place, as I mentioned in my video as well. So he also believed that when education is no longer a commodity, when knowledge is no longer an obligation that you go to school because you are obliged, because you are forced to, then if that doesn't happen, then finally earth can finally embrace the power of learning. That is the most important aspect when it comes to education and knowledge seeking. And finally, what we can take away from what he has criticized is the importance of informal education as well. Like aside from going to school and learn at school, you should also learn that there are other methods and there are other form of learning which are informal education that are very good as well, which will be presented by my friend later. So all in all, Ivan Illich argues the changes to all institutions so that they may be more convivial for learning, as in like there should be a reform. That's why he criticizes it, to make it a happier place for everyone where knowledge is very important. Thank you very much. That's from me. All right, Kak Izzah next.
Okay, I'll continue with alternative forms of education. Can you hear me? So simply define, alternative education means any form of education outside the conventional schooling system. So there are two types of alternative education. The first one is require parental decision. It is elitist in substance. Basically, it has specific curriculum. It has education philosophy. It has there are teachers trained for this, or parents be the teachers if it's homeschooling, and it may have a fee. The other one require individual decision. It is democratic in substance. It usually lack of hierarchy. It is for all ages. Decentralized learning, voluntary sharing of knowledge, skills, ideas, and also it is divided into few here. But I'm not gonna go each and one of it because I've already explained more in my video. Okay, so we are going to take a look at the first one, homeschooling. So basically, homeschooling is only legal in Malaysia since 2003, and it's initially just for children with chronic diseases. However, now it is not the case. More parents with healthy kids choose homeschooling. So according to Budget 2002, there are close to 5,000 homeschoolers in Malaysia. But if you notice, this research is in 2002 when homeschooling is not legal yet. So actually there are more, but sadly there are no data for us to see how many homeschoolers are there really in Malaysia. So, and there is a stigma on homeschooling that it does not produce good students. So however, if you take a look at this, these are some of the product of homeschooling. The first one, you look at Sam. He is the youngest Canadian parliament member. He's only 19 years old when he was elected. And the other three are from Malaysia. They managed to get scholarship to further the education, and they are also involved in volunteer work, giving back to community. So actually, homeschooling it does produce good students. The next one, we move on to private school. So initially, private schools was meant for expatriate children who want their children to learn British or American curriculum. But if you take a look at this, in 2017, there are 458 schools. As of November 2020, there are 511 schools. And in fact, if there's a local newspaper brought up the issue of there are more Malaysians in private international schools instead of non-citizen. If you look at 2019, there are more than 44,000 Malaysians, and which is more. So then why is this happening? This is something that we should ponder upon, and we hope that you can share your opinion in the chat box. Okay, we move on to the next one. This is require individual decision. The second form of alternative education, democratic in substance. There are 5 here, but I'm just going to add one. Street school. So there are numerous street schools worldwide. UNESCO has actually organized most of it alongside the NGOs. But I'm just going to focus on two here, Borneo Komra, and the next one is Buku Jalanan Chowkit. So Sabah has more than 23,000 stateless residents under the age of 21. This is due to the influx of foreigners from the Philippines and Indonesia into the country without valid documentation. So they have volunteers from University of Sabah. They set up the Borneo Format with the aim to eradicate literacy. So another one, this is another school. Also, what they're doing is this is in Kuala Lumpur, Buku Jalanan Chowkit.
Allow
Yes.
you have 2 more minutes to round off the presentation.
Okay. So we move on to the alternative, the pros and cons of alternative education. So basically, the pros are flexibility, the time, place, the course, the curriculum, the small size, decentralized authority. The best part is non-interference with the political, economic, and cultural space of society. The cons is no conformity. It might be too lax. Sing or swim here means if like homeschoolers who learn on their own, they either have a good time management, they study well, or they sing, maybe they fail to study. And it is usually more expensive and require parents' commitment. We go to the conclusion. So we have already presented on how diploma degrees offers inequality in education, where it has become meaningless ritual and act as a tool for job opportunity. It even paved the ways of forgery of credentials. However, qualification is vital to a certain level where we need it for like a basis or guideline for recruitment selection. So we have to find a fine line between qualification and real education. So we propose that having a best of both worlds, blending the good features of public education and also alternative education. So hence the future of education is embracing changes instead of remaining static. So that is all from us. Thank you.